Hey, how y'all doing? Welcome to the Becoming Shameless podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Wallace.
I'm Josiah Baines, your host.
Yes, sir. And we started this podcast because we believe that shame only exists when it's hidden. And like God accepts us for who we are as people, and He knows what we've done. So why not shed light to stuff where we have faults? Because none of us are perfect. And in society, we highlight all of the successes. So like, why not just address the process of the struggle?
Right. And also, I just wanted to be able to have a space where, kids or young adults our age can be able to see two, especially black men in the culture and be able to share their stories and share their opinions and thoughts and stuff from a Christian, not a Christian standpoint, but we are Christians, so.
Children of God. But yeah, and for our first episode, the topic is acceptance. The one thing that everybody genuinely wants. Acceptance.
I feel like we should name this podcast Why Don't You Love Me? I was thinking about that in the shower.
That's hard.
Why don't you love me? Because you know what I'm saying. A lot of people, even themselves, like they can ask themselves, like, why don't you love? Like, why don't I love myself? You know.
That's deep.
And they be wanting to be accepted by other people and have trouble accepting themselves. So, yeah. So we're gonna get into.
We're gonna call this why don't you love me? I like that. I like that. Yeah, it's hard because it's true. Because like one thing that people really want in acceptance and they crave is validation. It's the why don't you? You know what I'm saying? Why can't you do this for me? And you always hear the saying like, oh, the you is silent, because people really will do what they want for certain people, and that's where acceptance comes in. Like you have to accept the role that people have for you in their lives. Yes, you may want to pursue more, but you're not guaranteed or you're not entitled to what placement that you want in someone else's life, which even I struggle with sometimes.
And I know, for at least speaking for me, me growing up, I really have struggled with accepting myself, and still now just trying to figure out what it is that I do on a day-to-day basis that sometimes I feel like I don't accept about myself, or the stuff that I feel like I need to work on, and just stuff that I feel like other people, I want them to accept about me, and I try to force it, but sometimes, it doesn't really work out that way. So just being able to, for me, I really am still working on accepting myself, and then accepting other people around you, because it's really hard to truly accept somebody, especially if you don't really know them at first. So at first sight, a lot of people might seem kind of rude, or have certain characteristics about them, and you're like, but you never really know a person until you get close to them. So,
and even then, I feel like in most situations, people in our lives, we don't really accept them for their truest self. We accept them for who we want them to be. And I had like an epiphany the other night, because there's just one person in my life, like I love them dearly. And it's kind of like it hit me like no, you're not a bad person, and I love you, we're close, but in reality, you're not who I thought you out to be. And the problem is where I hurt myself is, because it's not even that she's hurting me, I'm hurting myself. I'm trying to mold you into the woman of my dreams, and maybe you're just not that, and that's okay. And I feel that's the problem. We try to shape and mold people into who we think they should be. In reality, that means you haven't accepted them. Like I heard a saying, and I know I hate quoting TikTok because I feel like it's so much misinformation, but it was really like food for thought. The person was like, don't date somebody unless you be okay if they never change as a person. And that right there tells you a lot of times you're literally just trying to mold somebody into who you want, because you're trying to change that person, and change is something that has to be something that you crave. You can't make somebody change. They have to want it for themselves. You can't want nothing for somebody else. And that's where, like, even myself, I feel like I don't accept people, which I'm trying to learn, because I'm going to push people away trying to mold them and trying to force something when I should just let them be. Because those who don't listen must feel. I can't love you into being better.
That's right. That's facts. And there has to be a guideline. I don't think there really is a set guideline, at least for our age and you know our experience with life. Like I don't have a set picture of what it is, like the straight definition of like me accepting somebody for who they are, and then me also trying to not force myself, like force my, like you said, my view and my opinion and my want for them onto them. So it's like, where is the line between me actually genuinely accepting them, but also me not accepting no BS? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
What is the certain point where I'm like, okay, you know, say somebody brought up a girl. So say a girl in a situation, she is kind of I'm trying not to say anything with like referencing my own situations.
Not trying to be too specific.
Yeah, but say she's greedy, right?
Yeah.
So you know, every single time you got some money, you get a check in, right? And you know, she's like, her first thing might be, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, when are we? She knows the check coming in, so she be like, when we going? You know what I'm saying? Like, she starts getting a little bit more needy in the fact and coming to you and stuff, and you like, okay, like is this who she is? Like, has she dealt with stuff in her past where she feels like she needs to present herself in that way? Maybe I don't know, like her dad never really, you know, took care of her in that way, so she feels like she needs to emphasize that kind of thing. Or is it just she just really want to, you know what I'm saying, use somebody and spend their bag and stuff? So you know, that comes a lot with discernment. At least I feel like you really got to have a discerning spirit, and be in the Lord, and you know, read your word and stuff like that. From a Christian standpoint, from a non-Christian standpoint, you gotta know who you dealing with. That comes with time.
But even then, it's kind of like, it kind of goes back to that conversation we had with the guys that, you know, was at Bar Louie, and it's kind of like, and it goes back to accepting, like, more than one thing can be true at once. Like, I love this saying, understanding but not tolerant. But that also comes with identifying what are your values, what are your standards, and what are your non-negotiables. Like, certain things, even in, like, I'd be a liar if I said I don't act as if I let stuff slide, because I do. I can say I'm not tolerant all I want, but there's a lot of stuff I let slide because I love the individual. But in reality, you gotta stick to your non-negotiables. Like, if something is just like, nah, that's it, that's to stand to your standards, and that's true. I feel like that's true acceptance when you can stand on your standards. Cause I feel like we love people so much that you don't stand on. I know there's a verse the other day I was reading, and it was saying how, like, love is, like, hopeful. And that hopefulness sometimes, to an extent, can turn to a sense of, like, self-disrespect because you're tolerating the mistreatment. So it's like, I understand what you're saying, like, what's the balance between standing, like, on your grounds and accepting where they are. I think accept them from who they are and move accordingly. And move accordingly.
I'm gonna let y'all know right now.
No buts, just ands.
That point right there, I'm gonna let y'all know right now. I watch a whole lot of Tim Ross. I watch his podcast. I listen to his sermons. Like, that's my mentor by proxy, even though, like, he's not around. But, like, just from the proximity of me listening to him so much, I mention him a lot. And one thing he does say a lot is, like you said, two things can be true. Is a lot of times we add buts to sentences that should have ands in them. Like, I love you, but you're mean. No, it's I love you and you're mean. Like, two things can be true. So I feel like that's something a lot in our culture.
More than two things could be true, actually. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people, where they mess themselves up, I feel like even society, like I always say, like, there's such a dualistic mindset where if it's not left, it's right. If it's not up, it's down. And it's like, it can be everything in both. Exactly. Like, not everything has to be this or that. Exactly. And because that this or that mindset, it makes a lot of people condone their own behaviors to where they don't accept that they're wrong. Like, you see that a lot of times in accountability talks, like, yes, I keyed his car, but he cheated on me. Y'all both wrong, regardless. Like, it don't matter. The but doesn't just, because I feel like but serves for many people as an automatic justifier for their behavior, or even like the reasoning behind. So like, just because there's a reason, like I always say, just because there's a reason doesn't mean it's a justification for what you did.
Well, let's talk about the importance of acceptance. And
ooh, man.
So, first of all, if you don't check yourself with any of these episodes, and one, I want to just prerequisite all the episodes we gonna make, and all the talking we might do. If we say something wrong, please do not sit there and that, even though people are probably still gonna do it, but do not hold us accountable to one thing that we said. We are humans,
and we're always growing too, so our mindset might change.
Exactly, and just as much as we talking to the viewers, we talking to ourselves too. So this is just stuff that we realize in our own lives, and the stuff that we've learned from my 22 years of living and Nick's 22 years of living. So do not hold us to one thing that we said. But before we talk about anything in this episode and anything in any episode, we want to make sure that everything first starts with yourself, right?
Always with yourself.
Before you try to point the finger at anybody else, and you shouldn't be pointing fingers anyways, but before you can talk about anybody else, you need to recollect yourself and go through what you do and stuff and work on yourself, because you cannot sit there and try to work on somebody else and you have baggage.
What's that verse? How can you point out the speck in someone else's eye when you have a plank in your own?
Exactly.
And it kind of goes back to like, shout out Miss Glover, my kindergarten teacher. Whenever you point a finger, there's 3 pointing back.
That's right.
So, and how you treat others has more to do with you than them. So you gotta really self-reflect on stuff, and you'll never be perfect. So no matter how much you grow, it doesn't mean that you're not wrong. Remember that saying I always say, like, don't become so deep you become shallow, because that's what a lot of people do. Yeah. They get to a point of knowledge where they feel like they can do no wrong, or they're dismissive, and like, a broken clock strikes 2 times a day. You can learn from anybody, anywhere. You're not too good to learn from people, and we see that a lot in this society, like a lot.
So let's get back into the importance of acceptance. Acceptance, for me, is important because it's something that I've recently learned, is that you need to be able to accept people where they are, right? Not just for who they are, but accept them for where they are. And I especially want to talk to the Christian church, and really any religious, first of all, people in general, right? But humanity. I can only talk for the church of God, the body of Christ and stuff. It's something that I've heard a lot of people say, is they don't feel accepted in church. Like they feel like whenever they go into church, they're going to be judged, and they have a whole lot of negatives about church, and that draws them away from church.
You know what it is, bro? Conviction versus condemnation.
Right.
The church, they try to make it seem as if it's the conviction, solely the conviction, eating the people up in their hearts or whatever. But a lot of times, you're condemning these people. You're condemning them. And, the verse, like, he who's without sin cast the first stone. Exactly. And a lot of people in the church, they get to a point where, like I said, they become so deep, they become shallow. They're spewing hatred when God himself preaches love. Exactly. To the point, I understand when people who aren't Christian, or even aren't Christian, say they don't like Christians, because I feel a majority of Christians have set a bad example of what God is supposed to be, and we're supposed to represent the body of Christ.
Right.
So if we're representing the body of Christ, we have to act as he would, and who are we to judge?
Right.
Plus, there's a lot of selective morality within the church, which doesn't go addressed. Like, other than blasphemy, which is unforgivable, all sins are equal in the eyes of God. It's not for me to sit here and say, because this person's gay, they're going to hell. Especially when there's like 17 sexual sins, and then one of them is premarital sex, and then society don't care about that, and they're both abominations in the eyes of God. I've never been a fan of selective morality, especially within the church, because it shows the lack of, knowledge of the Bible. But that also goes to say, I feel like I always tell you, the pastor's one of the most dangerous people, because people don't read themselves. They go off what they're told, and it's like a game of telephone. People are just repeating what they heard, whether it be from church, from a TikTok, everything in life, everything is by word of mouth. So when people don't actually read and fact check, it really puts people in a situation where they're gonna just keep spewing ignorance, and it's damaging.
Facts. That's facts. It has gotten to a point, at least, that I think that I don't want to point out the older generation because I know a lot of us, humans in general, do this, and so people just don't, like you said, don't fact check what they're hearing and then fact check themselves. So if somebody's walking into a church and they see, what I'm saying, they got their pants sagging, and anybody who know me, they know my pants do be falling sometimes, but that's because it's like, no, let me stop. I need to be pulling my pants up a lot of the time. But a lot of times I'll be wearing sweatpants and stuff. But I'm like, I ain't gonna make no excuses or nothing like that. I know my mom be getting on me and my girl be getting on me and stuff, but whenever you see somebody or say somebody's walking into a church, the first thing you point out is their flaws, right? And I think that's a lot of just human nature. Like if somebody is not on my, if I feel like somebody is not on my level, or I feel like somebody is not, I don't want to say on my level because that's like really harsh, but if I see differences, like immediate differences, say, what I'm saying, I'm from a high class family, right? And I'm used to wearing, what I'm saying, the designers and stuff like that. And I see somebody, I see somebody wearing some no name brand stuff. I'm like, what I'm saying, you automatically infer in your head that this person isn't.
It's an air superiority that I feel like a lot of people have.
So it's come to a point where the first thing you see is not. It's not a problem seeing like what they have on, but you have to be able to accept the fact, like, okay, like now I have knowledge of, I understand, I have a little bit of information. Instead of using that information against them, use that information for them, right? So now,
that's good. That's good right there.
Whenever you know what I'm saying, they might have a problem or something, and just from me being able to ask, and you need to be more curious. Right, I'm jumping from point to point, but that's another thing that I be hearing from listening to Tim Ross and stuff, and something that I had to really start applying is being more curious. You cannot be. I just listening this morning. He said you cannot be offended and curious at the same time. Right. So if somebody offends you, or right, you in the church. Let's go back to the church scenario. Mm-hmm. You're in the church, and say an elder in the church right there offended by somebody coming to church and say they're LGBTQ plus, affiliate with that community, and they're offended. It's like oh my gosh, like why is this heathen coming into our church? First of all, praise the Lord for them even feeling comfortable to come into the church.
The wrong thing
in the first place, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable coming into the church as they are, and everybody loves to preach. Come as you are. Come as you are, but as soon as they come as they are, you better leave as you are. So
not for real.
You have to be able to see who they are and where they are, and then be like, okay, now I'm going down my mental checklist of, right, I know who this, I at least have an idea of who this person is. I at least have an idea of the point that they're at in their lives or in their Christian walk. And now, right, I can love them where exactly they are. And that, I feel like, is where acceptance truly has to start. And it's not easy. I still be doing the whole thing where, what I'm saying, I get into a mindset of not fully accepting people in that way, and like I said, I'm not just sitting here trying to preach to people and not take my own word, but it's a process. It's a long process to be able to try to get to that point of truly accepting people in every single stage, right? And the closer you get to somebody, the harder it's gonna be to really start accepting them, right? From far away, it's easy to.
That's a fact.
It's real easy to just be like, yeah, that's cool. Like, what I'm saying, that's cool. Because when you first meet somebody, you don't wanna come off as no type of way. But as you get closer, you get more comfortable. You're like, I don't know about like you over there.
Yeah.
You over there sitting there cheating on people. I don't even know.
You can see them blemishes. Like
exactly.
They ain't got no makeup. You can't see from afar. You can't see that filter. Like
exactly.
It's kind of like, you know what I'm saying. Like you on Instagram, you're not close to them. You're not in proximity to them, so you only see the filter. But when you really next to them on the couch, you can see them. Like I see your bumps. Like you got a little bit of a mustache. You know what I'm saying. You might want to get some tweezers. You know what I'm saying.
Exactly. It's real. It's real. Another reference from the Basement Podcast. He mentioned this bit Dave Chappelle. I think he said Dave Chappelle was like on the Oprah show, and he said the most dismissive thing you can
call somebody crazy.
Call somebody crazy.
It's super, and I learned that too because I can't go specifics. I'm trying to get a job, but like I had a situation where I wasn't in my right state of mind, and it kind of hit me like I thought I was going crazy, and then I remember that's the first thing I thought of. I seen that video years ago, and I'm like, even people like in mental asylums, like you may think they're crazy, but they probably saw something that we didn't see, and we're so dismissive. And I feel like, and we're going to our next topic is social acceptance, and I feel like the problem is we put everything in life into boxes and roles, and even in our relationships in life, like you have the therapist friend, then you have the friend you have fun with, and I think we sometimes forget that people are multifaceted. They wear more than one mask.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
That's just humans. That's people.
We're humans. There's different layers to everybody, and say as a black man, there's a certain stereotype that is supposed to be of a black man that many people don't fit that mold. Even how it is to be a real man. Like a lot of people, and you see that's why a lot of black men that we know, or even in life, that young men crash out, because a lot of black men think the way to be a black man is through aggression. You know what I'm saying? A certain air of respect that comes through, you know what I'm saying, having a certain type of dominance. And I'm like, that's not what it means to be a man. But we've been conditioned to think that, to even where sometimes women say that, or like, oh, I don't like this, you acting like this. And it's like, hey, yo, like, there's no ideal way to be a black man. And even then, there's different arguments. Like, even though, like, the whole concept of the hood guy, the hood is where you live. There's people who are nerds from the hood. Not everybody has to sell drugs. Not everybody has to scam. And I feel like it kind of goes back to a sense of self first. You can never fully be content and be accepted by society until you're truly yourself, because a lot of people try to fit these narratives to their own demise. You tried to portray an image that you felt that you had to be, based on all your influences and all the stuff you hear, to the point where you're doing stuff out of character, and it's irreversible damage that's been done to your life.
That's facts. To piggyback off of what you said about people, oh my gosh,
all good, man.
about people tying that narrative, say somebody's from the hood or something, like, or any scenario, and they automatically tie that to who they are, right?
Yeah.
That is the community where they live. That is not who they are. And that goes with anything. Say somebody, people love to tie what they do and who they are into the same sentence, right? Into the same noun. Like, automatically, you're not a him, her. You are a doctor.
Yeah.
You are a pastor. You are a stockbroker.
And it's like, that's my occupation.
Exactly. That's not who
Nicholas. That is what I do.
So now I'm tying everything that has to do with a pastor or a doctor, and I'm tying it straight to who they are. And all of a sudden, it's like you're giving me a whole list of, you're giving me a to-do list to do that I have to do for you, or you have this expectation of me, and I'm like, dude, you don't even know me. And that's why we go back to the Dave Chappelle thing. It is so dismissive to sit there and from afar be able to say, oh, you're this, you're that. When you don't even know somebody, you have to get close. You have to be able to have conversations and sit down and be able to talk with people and be able to really understand who they are without being judgmental. And that goes for people who are in the church and people who are not in the church, whether you believe in God, whether, no matter who you are, you need to have the basic foundation of, okay, when I first meet a person, right, if I really want to know who they are, I need to have multiple conversations, multiple interactions, and then I'm able to get a full picture of who they are. Not to dismiss anything if they do something crazy. They do crazy stuff, but they are not a crazy person. I think we throw around that crazy word way too much. Way too much.
And it kind of is like, and you know firsthand, because like you grew up with me, so like, you know, I got 16 tattoos. Like, people see me and assume like I'm a certain way. Yeah. And then when I tell them, oh yeah, I'm in a book club with all girls, they like, huh? Like, yes, bro, I like to read. I like to expand my knowledge. Like, yes, I like to garden sometimes. Like, there's no ideal way to be a man. Right. It's really just being. I feel like you're a man where you're content with who you are as a person and you're striving to be a better individual. That's what makes a man to me. But I feel as if you have to come to terms with your own definition of what it means to be a man. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, because they take on all this stuff. Because I always say, like, whatever you listen to or whatever you watch, it enters your subconscious to the point you don't even realize that stuff has such an influence on your desires. It's kind of like if you watch a commercial right now, you see a new Taco Bell ad, you gonna want Taco Bell. And you gonna convince yourself that was your thought, and it's not. So everything that we've consumed, even when it comes to music, the media, the videos we watch, it affects how we want and how we desire things, and if it's healthy or not, and how we do it in the manner we do it.
Let me ask you a question.
Right? Go ahead, man.
So first, we talked about, we kind of been jumping around, but we're gonna get back. We're gonna eventually come back to the point in the end. So we talked about, right? We touched on the importance of acceptance. We touched on a little bit social acceptance, and I want to read this verse, but I'm gonna read it a little bit later. But the acceptance of family, right? I want to ask you, how do you accept a family member when you don't feel like they are worth being accepted?
That's a good question. I feel like where I kind of find error in that question is worth. Who am I to determine who is worth what? And you know, I've always hated certain type of words, which you know, because I feel like, who am I to gauge that? Even with the whole, like, when I feel like I deserve this. Yeah. Who are you to say that? I feel like to even try to determine someone's worth or that value stuff, who are you to do that? Because none of us are that important to where we have the power or authority to determine that. I feel as if your people in your family don't align with your moral values, depending on what they do, sometimes it's in the best interest to cut ties, but I feel as if you can only accept so much. But like I said, everybody in life has non-negotiables, and I don't feel like blood makes you exempt to that. I feel like there's no exception to it. I feel like because love is hopeful, you'll give more chances because they're family, but I don't feel like, you know what I'm saying, if they keep breaking those non-negotiables, like you said earlier, it all starts with self. Disease causes disease, and don't, you know what I'm saying, like I always say, don't mess up the inner peace you have within yourself trying to keep the peace, even with family.
Facts. Another quote from the basement: don't be dishonest at the sake of honoring. So
that's a bar.
You right, in a family scenario, and say you've had, you know what I'm saying, a hard growing up with your parents, or had a hard growing up with your sibling or an uncle or a cousin or something like that, and being able to accept them, still be able to, first of all, love and acceptance. I wanna be able to kind of break apart those two things, right? Yeah. Right. Just because I loved you, I don't have to accept the things you do, right? I don't have to personally accept the fact that I might have been abused when I was younger. I might have been,
It's tied in a lot in our community.
A whole lot, especially, you know what I'm saying? I know with the black community and
especially the black community.
And it's like the
lot love and struggle.
Exactly.
You gotta struggle when it's love.
It's like, you know, your parents be like, you know, boy, you better, you know, do something because, you know, I did this for you, right? And rightfully so. I'm not excusing no parents who, you know what I'm saying, be on edge, but rightfully so, right? While you're in the household of your parents, you do have to follow their rules and their stuff and stuff like that. But you don't have to be dishonest about your experience at the sake of honoring your parents, right? I can still honor my parents and still say, hey, I understand, right? And this comes with getting context. I understand you worked long hours, right? You sacrificed a lot for me. And the stuff you did really, really kind of damaged me and traumatized me and stuff like that. And so you have to allow yourself to, like we said earlier, let both things be true, right?
Yeah.
Just because you might not want to accept the fact that, you know, your dad may be a big yeller and you know what I'm saying, he talks real loud and you know what I'm saying, he's just a loud person. So whenever he speaks to you, he's real loud and he's asked something and he's known to get loud and you just kind of shut down. And it's hard. You don't have to accept that part about him, right? You can accept the fact that he's your father, right? You know, he did certain stuff for you and stuff like that. And I don't accept the way that they talk to me. And I feel like it has to be cookie cutter. A lot of people think it has to be a certain way in terms of families. Like if I'm your dad and, you know, I do this is, you're just gonna have to, you know, accept the way this is. Like, no,
yeah.
like, just because your dad had to accept, or you are a father and you had to accept what your parents did to you, doesn't mean your kids have to accept the stuff that you do to them. And even if they express to you that they don't appreciate it and they don't like it, or, you know, it makes them feel a certain type of way, you have to be able to be a good enough person and check yourself, like you said before, enough to be able to say, hey, like, you know, I realize that this is wrong, and I realize that what I'm doing is not right to you. So, you know what I'm saying, try to work and have, like you said, it's all about conversation and communicating. So
and to add to your point, like, acceptance doesn't go hand in hand with accountability, because they're not the same thing, but they're cousins. And with part of the acceptance is the accountability factor. In regards to the family, that's where a lot of the problem lies, with the accountability part of the acceptance. Especially, like, I know I was having a conversation with one of my mentees last night, and we were talking about, like, parents and generational trauma. And though I don't condone the behavior of older generations, especially in the black community, they had to deal with more stuff than we did. And I don't think our generation really acknowledges that the ability that we have to focus on mental health itself is actually a privilege. Because think about it. Like, my father was born in 1964. That's the same year the Civil Rights Act got passed.
Exactly.
Meaning, we're only like one generation, depending on how old your parents are, removed from it. And then before then, you know what I'm saying, you had Jim Crow. My grandmother was a sharecropper. So it's like, we're not that far removed from it. And when you have a system that's so oppressive, you don't have the luxury to focus on your mental health. So even though I don't condone their treatment, I acknowledge that a lot of generational trauma stems from the ability, or the lack of ability, to focus on their mental health, because they're going through these traumatic stuff. And remember, these are new adjustments that they have to deal with. And a lot of times, like I said, how you treat others has more to do with you than the other person. You know what I'm saying? And if they take it out on their kids, and I'm not saying, and I don't condone it, it's completely wrong, but I do think there should be a lot of more grace with accountability that should be also taken by the older generation.
Let me get to
take your time.
This book real quick, right? Now I'm a as much as I can, right? I want to make sure that I get to this Bible right here. Now you can log off, you cannot watch this if you want to, but one thing about me is I want to make sure when it comes to this stuff, and I've learned that I'm not just talking out my mouth, is that I read this book. But Proverbs 4:7, right? Um, it says, "Getting wisdom is the wisest thing you can do, and whatever else you do, develop a good judgment." So you want to
Proverbs.
You want to have a good judgment and dealing with people, right? So it's not only wisdom. You don't only need wisdom and being wise of who you discern with and who you know speak to and have being wise in the way you carry out conversation like that. But you want to also have a good judgment and a good understanding of who the person is. Like we said, the context and the background of who the person is, what they've been through, all that kind of stuff, and then right, you're able to be wise about certain decisions when it comes to whether you want to accept something and to not accept something. And I feel like we're talking about acceptance, but it's completely okay to not accept stuff that people do, right? Accepting the person, because we all want to be accepted. The whole I want to say motto for humans is we all want to be accepted, we all want to be loved, we all want to be understood, and we all want to be heard, right? Those are 4 things that I feel like are basic needs for humans. Everybody is looking for those 4 things, right? If you
sounds familiar. That's what I be saying.
But if you're a human being, you're looking for those things, and that's how people get themselves in bad situations, right? Because they feel like they're getting those 4 things, and then all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying, stuff turns left. You feel like people start changing. It's not that people start changing. It was just that they gave you something that you felt like you were missing, and then now they're not. One, they may not be consistent giving it to you, and 2, you just might not have known exactly who they are, so they might, dupe you. And
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of acceptance, whether it be social, or whatever, do you feel like us being in America plays a part in how we view acceptance? Because I remember I was watching this video, and they were speaking about the difference in like Europe versus America, where like America is very big on pleasantries, people pleasing, and a lot of it stems from capitalism, for being honest, because you need people, but in other countries they'll be like, oh, they're rude. We'll be like they're rude, but in reality they skip the pleasantries because they accept things for as is. It's, you know what I'm saying? They don't need to sugarcoat stuff because they're not hoping for nothing in return. Do you feel, so like back to what I was saying, do you feel as if being in America shifts our perspective on acceptance and how we go about getting it?
Absolutely. Right. I from recent, right, I was with my cousins and my aunt and uncle, right, and I've always been fascinated with Australia, right. Since I was
younger, got crocodiles.
They have a lot of wild animals, but I've always been fascinated with this because I've heard so many great things, and you know what I'm saying, how Australia is the closest thing to America in terms of society wise, but they don't really have all the BS that we be going through in America and stuff like that. So I'm like, Australia must be like a utopia. Like, this must be like the promised land or something. You know what I'm saying? The way people talk about Australia. And then one of my cousins actually married a girl who's from Australia, and I was like, hey, like, how was Australia for you? And she gave me a totally different story. She was like, it's terrible. She didn't say it's terrible, but she was like, yeah, it's not as good as whatever you heard. Like, it's like basically it's like a dictatorship. She was talking about COVID, and she was like, here during COVID, everybody had curfews, and you know what I'm saying, they were real lenient. Like, you know what I'm saying, you're supposed to be in this place, but if you're not, like over there, like if you were in your house at a certain time, they were taking you to jail. Like, that's straight facts. So America has been real.
We acknowledge Australia is not a dictator.
It's not, but that was just the example. America is real privileged. We're really privileged and real.
Maybe spoiled.
And definitely spoiled, right? We're really privileged and really relaxed, and I feel like relaxed over here, and I feel like we don't really have a lot of the
we're a people-pleasing society.
Exactly.
Which kind of goes into how we as people, where a lot of people have issues with being people pleasers because when you're trying to, it's kind of like a game, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's playing the game for their best. They're trying to win, so they hide their hand. So they'll be kind to you, but it's not because they genuinely care or they're invested in what you have to say. Mm-hmm. They're doing it because they never know when they might need you. Mm-hmm. So they're always trying to keep you in the good graces, which I feel as if in terms of acceptance it's added to the sense that many people are people pleasers. Mm-hmm. And like there is a lack of genuinity. So all these things that we want, acceptance, is hard to get because there's such a lack of genuine people because people are always looking for the next best thing and what's in their best interest.
Right. It say you're talking with somebody and you know you're in a relationship, right? And you got one person, like you say, the girl is spilling out all her feelings, right? Yeah. The girl, she's sitting there, she's completely being transparent and vulnerable with you, and you know and people do this with like one person is always being, not always, but I'm saying a lot of times it's a one-sided thing, right? A lot of people, you know, especially our generation these days, like can't let nobody know too much about me. You know what I'm saying? They might try to sit there and stab me in the back, or you know what I'm saying? Like you really, which is true, you really can't. You got to be like a drawbridge, right? You got to come down for some people, and some people you can't allow to cross the bridge. But for the people you come down with, don't say you're gonna come down for them and then try to put obstacles on the bridge and make this like.
I think it's manipulative. To be honest.
Exactly. Super manipulative, and it's controlling because you can't. And it's something I had to learn myself. Like in a lot of my relationships, I was like allowing them to hear. I was allowing them to say everything they wanted to say, and you know what I'm saying, be vulnerable and stuff like that. And I would only tell them like a little piece of me. So it's like now they only know one thing, two things about me, and I know everything about them. So now, you know what I'm saying, I would do this. We would get into it or something like that, and I'm like, well, you did this or you did that, and they like, well, they don't know nothing I be doing because you know what I'm saying. I'm holding all the cards. I'm trying to hold all the, like, I still have my cards, and they put their cards on the table, and I picked them up, and now I got all the cards, and I'm like, yeah, like, you can't.
It's kind of like how I play Uno. You know, I be looking at people's cards.
Exactly.
But you ain't gonna see my cards.
Exactly. Like, you cannot be doing that and sitting there and expecting people to, you know, accept you. And you can't accept people like that. Like, it's...
And it kind of goes with how, like, you know what I'm saying, a lot of men act, from what I hear from women, because, you know, like, a lot of them be saying, like, they don't be trustable. Like, you know, like, we're very chivalrous. Like, I'll say, but my bro, he's very, like, chivalrous. Like, he a good guy. Mm-hmm. And, like, we were raised on, like, opening doors, you know what I'm saying, putting gas in cars. And whenever I, like, do that for a girl, they be so thrown off. And it's, like, they be on some stuff where it's, like, don't do that no more. Or they be, like, thrown off and, like, they think I want something from them. And it's, like, no. I don't need anything from you. Yeah. And the thing is, it was weird about me because I tell women, even that I'm platonic with, what I want from them. And I ask because I need to know your boundaries because you're already going to probably assume I want something from you anyway because I'm a man. Mm-hmm. But, you know what I'm saying? And I'll tell you what I want out of you and where we stand. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, I've already revealed my cards, but they're still used to people hiding their cards and trying to read theirs. They can't just trust a genuine act. So I feel like even then, in terms of acceptance, how do you accept the good in some? Because we always think about the bad, some people for who they are and their worst. How do we accept the good in people?
That's a great question.
Because a lot of people believe stuff's too good to be true to where they self-sabotage.
That's correct. Hey, completely vulnerable and transparent. I am a self-sabotager. I will sabotage the sugar honey iced tea out of anything. if I really put my mind to it and I really start being like, maybe this doesn't work, I'm gonna start shooting. I'm gonna start shooting my own relationship down. Like I be trying to bail out so quick, bro. I be pressing the eject button, but like I said, it comes with, for me at least, it really had to be with knowing the person, right? And something that I also had to work on is really understanding is, do I really know this person, right? And it's a line between, do I feel like I know them enough, or are they actually telling me enough? right? So I might think like, no, I don't really know a lot about them. I feel like they're not telling me everything.
Yeah.
And then it also might be like, on their side, they might be like, I am to like, there's nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to figure out like what is, and so you might feel like, you know, they're not telling you everything, but really they are. So you really have to trust, and at least for me, I really have to continue to read my word and stuff like that, and just trust the fact that whether they're telling me everything or whether they're not telling me everything, whether the good stuff they're doing is really good or if they're, you know, trying to masquerade or something like that. Not everybody. First, I had to learn. Not everybody has an ulterior motive. Not everybody is just doing stuff and then they're gonna come behind you and try to, you know what I'm saying, sneak you or something. Like, you really have to. If somebody has shown that they're a good person, trust that they're a good person, and God is allowing them in your life to just be a good person, and they're not just trying to sit there. But also, when you put yourself out there, there's always a risk of you getting hurt, right? That's just across the board. There's no way you can dodge and.
But that's kind of the beauty of it. It's the risk and reward.
Exactly.
And one of the most humbling things, like, it's cruel to say, but I remember like this girl she ain't trust me, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, in all reality, what would I gain from you? Like, I feel as if when you assume people are just wanting something from you, mm-hmm. you kind of overestimate yourself.
Yeah.
Like, to an extent, like, and this is with no judgment, but like, I'm not even attracted to you. Why would I want you? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have anything going for yourself. So why would I need to lie to you to get something mm-hmm. when I could just tell you what I want? And like, not everybody has. But the thing is, I can't get mad. Women that hate men, I always say, I understand, because men are liars. Yeah. And men do hide their cards a lot. Yeah. But I feel like, to an extent, when you just assume that even male, woman, whatever you are, whatever you identify as, mm-hmm. whatever you identify as, when you assume someone has a hidden motive, yeah. you really think that means you're thinking too highly of yourself, because you're probably not as high in your mind as you think. Like, not everybody needs to lie.
That's facts. What we got next? Acceptance versus validation.
Ooh, how do people know the difference? How do people, because like people, especially in this like era we have social media, which is purely validation for the most part. Mm-hmm. How do you know that people are just validating what you want to see or want to believe about yourself, or they genuinely accept you for who you are? How do you know the difference?
I would say proximity and context. If from over Instagram, right, and now, again, let me tell a little bit of myself, and hopefully nobody sits there and uses this against me. But hey,
if whatever. They do, that's on them.
Hey, whatever. But a lot of my relationships have been romantic relationships have been over social media, right? So especially the day we the time we live in, right? Everybody got Tinder. Everybody got Instagram and stuff like that, so it's way easier to shoot your shot with somebody who look good over social media now.
Right.
To my demise, right? I shot my shot at people who didn't live the closest, so that's a whole different story. I don't even know why I just mentioned that, but
that was very specific.
But yeah, when you have proximity and you have full context of who you're dealing with, and you have a certain closeness to somebody, right? When you get on social media, you don't have that. You all you see is what they got on their page, the pictures they posting. So, you know what I'm saying? The most thing people be saying, like, oh, this valid. Like, she valid. She valid. Like, she valid. You don't accept her. Like, hey, let me tell you right now, right? And if my girlfriend watches this, babe, I'm sorry. But a girl might have, you know what I'm saying, a crazy body. You know what I'm saying? And you validating her body but you're not accepting. You don't even know. You don't have the capacity or the opportunity to accept who she is as a person. The same thing with dudes, and you know what I'm saying? Like, you see another dude's Instagram, and you like, oh snap, he got a valid fit on, or he got some nice clothes on, or something. And it's like, dude, you can't even accept a person for who they are. You wouldn't even last 10 minutes in a room with a person because all you did was validate what they got on.
I think it just hit me.
Their body.
I think it hit me with the difference is validation is loud, acceptance is quiet. Think about it. Validation is loud and acceptance is very quiet. Because when you truly accept something, you don't need to say it.
Exactly.
You don't need to prove it. You don't got to show it. But validation, I'm going to keep that purple tag on my jeans. You going to know this is purple. You know what I'm saying? Or you going to see my like. You going to see I got all these likes. You going to see that. And I feel like that's why I feel like personally, like with me sometimes, even though I use social media, I always say like I want to get to a point where I never get on it again. Because I feel as if when I do post, I want you to see like, oh yeah, you see this, you see I'm cooking, you see I'm doing this, you gonna see what I'm doing. But in reality, it's kind of like if I should be pleased with the fact that I know I did it.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've been conditioned to like look for acceptance through mediums that only give you validation. So you're never gonna be fulfilled with that. You know what I'm saying? Because you're always gonna, because with validation is something that you crave more. It's kind of like a drug. Like, oh, you see people all the time like, oh yeah, my video got 10,000 likes.
Yeah.
Now you want more because it's gonna make you crave it. Acceptance doesn't crave.
Exactly.
You feel me? It just is because it's quiet.
A lot of the times when you truly have to or trying to accept somebody, you're not gonna. It's gonna be hard. Like it's not gonna be a good feeling for us as humans, right? When you're truly trying to accept somebody, you're not like, ooh, like you know what I'm saying, you're not loud with it. Like it's something where you really have to swallow your pride, swallow your ego, swallow all this pause. Like, you know what I'm saying? You have to really humble yourself to accept somebody else, because it's like, one, right? You have to, like you said earlier, you have to realize, were we just talking about this earlier, or did you tell me this another time? Even if they don't change.
I said that earlier today. We had to talk before too, but yeah, they never change. And because I struggle with that now, like even like one of my closest friends, I love her to pieces, but like sometimes I find myself so irritated because it's like I talk to you so much and I see so much potential, and I guess in who I think you could be. You feel me? That like I'm always in a battle of trying to accept her without being upset, because it's like if I'm accepting who you are, I have to accept where you are, not just who you are, but where you are in life. You may get to a point or where I think you can be, but that's all in your timing. It's not for me to micromanage you. So I'm always in now I'm at a point where it's like, because I'm very person, as you know, if I'll address something, you know that I'll speak on it, but it's like I'm at a point where I need to start shutting up and just allow them to be, because if you truly accept somebody, you have to allow them to be. I can't keep telling you should probably do this. Trust people enough to take care of themselves, and if they don't listen, that's on them, because those who don't listen must feel.
I just real life situation. I just had to apologize to my girl yesterday because I realized that something that I was doing, that I was trying to micromanage.
Stop playing.
I was trying to micromanage and trying to make situations of just trying to make her into somebody, or make a certain situation where I can be able to see who she is, or you know what I'm saying? Like I'm sitting here setting bear traps for a bear that don't even, you know what I'm saying? That's not even like, I'm looking for a brown bear in wherever brown bears aren't found. I got brown bear traps when these are, you know what I'm saying? I'm sitting here, black bears, you know what I'm saying? like I'm sitting here just making stuff up in my mind. Like that's the, like, I had to sit there and tell myself, like, Josiah, stop it. You're doing crazy stuff. Like this is outlandish stuff. Like, stop doing that. Like, allow God to be able to work on somebody outside of your time frame. God do not, first of all, for you, that's ignorant. For you to think that stuff has to happen on your time, and I'm talking to myself as much as, like I said, I'm talking to other people. For you to think that stuff has to happen on your time is completely ignorant. People can change without it being on your time.
And that's convicted me because just last night I had to call this girl last night, and I was apologizing. I'm like, I realized even how I speak to you about certain stuff, even though I'm trying to look out, there's such an air of superiority when I speak to you, and it's like, if you generally want to do that, it's your life.
Exactly.
Do that. I can't try to, you know what I'm saying, criticize you or say anything to try to make you change. That's something you have to do on your own timing. It's not to please me. And for me to always be upset and trying to address certain stuff, I'm really making your life and your struggles about me and what I crave and what I desire. When at the end of the day, when I do that, I'm probably pushing you away because no one wants to be reminded of all their flaws or what they're doing wrong all the time.
Exactly.
That's facts, bro.
Man, this is the verse I wanted to read earlier.
Well, then read it then.
Right, we in 1 Corinthians again. Well, I read Proverbs before, never mind. I was looking at something else. We're in 1 Corinthians right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like to give context, right? Because I feel like a lot of times when we read the Bible, especially our generation, you kind of just look at the Bible like, this is a whole bunch of words, and you know what I'm saying? I used to be like, I'm all these words and stuff, like I'm sitting here trying to read. I don't know what these words mean, right? Until I started really like putting the Bible in context, you know what I'm saying? Who's writing and stuff like that, and understanding the times. I'm like, okay, now this makes sense, right? So anyways, we in 1 Corinthians, right? This Paul writing to the church in Corinth, right? 1 Corinthians 5, he's talking about the church is basically doing some crazy stuff, you know what I'm saying? They doing some wild stuff that be happening in the church these days, but you know what I'm saying? They just don't really talk about it. But in 1 Corinthians 5:9, right? It says, this is NLT. It says, when I wrote to you before, I told you not to associate with people who indulge in sexual sin. But I wasn't talking about unbelievers who indulge in sexual sin or are greedy or cheat people or worship idols. You would have to leave this world to avoid people like that. I meant that you are not to associate with anyone who claims to be a believer yet indulges in sexual sin or is greedy or worships idols or is abusive or is a drunkard or cheats people. Do not even eat with such people. It isn't my responsibility to judge outsiders, but it is certainly your responsibility to judge those inside the church who are sinning. God will judge those on the outside, but as the scriptures say, you must remove the evil person from among you. Right? So earlier I was talking about the church and, you know, people in the church not accepting people for who they are. If somebody comes in your church, right, and they do not profess that they know Jesus or that they are a believer in Christ, do not sit there and try to judge them, right? And this is accepting them for who they are. Accept the fact that they are not a believer in Christ at that moment. And don't sit there and be mad about it and be annoyed about it. Just accept the fact that they're not where you are right now. And that applies for every single conversation and every single topic we talked about so far. Is just accept the fact that somebody is not where you are, or they're not where you were at that stage, or however. Like, accept you're 40 years old. Accept the fact that your 20-year-old child or your 20-year-old friend or whatever the case may be is not where you are when you were at that age.
It's a late bloomer.
Exactly. It's not even a late bloomer. They're just still blooming. Like, like, it's not their time to bloom yet.
Flowers don't grow overnight.
Exactly. So you would have, like the verse says, you would have to leave this world in terms of people outside the church, if you are telling them to stop, you know, whatever they're doing and stop indulging in sin and stuff like that. Now, right? Let me preface that it's not that that believers don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a constant practice of that stuff, cause
like a doer of iniquity, basically.
Exactly. Like for when you accept Christ, you have a certain kind of self condemnation where it's like you know that you're not supposed to be. You know what I'm saying?
You're aware.
You're way more self-aware. Exactly. You're way more self-aware of your sin and stuff like that. It's like, you know what I'm saying, before you was wearing a shirt, you might have a stain on it. You wouldn't know. As soon as you accept...
There's a verse for that, too. You got Galatians 5, verse 24, NLT. Uh-huh. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have nailed the passions and desires of their sinful nature to his cross and crucified them there. So it's not that as a Christian, you're not going to do those things. Mm-hmm. But it's when you claim to be a Christian and you repetitively do those things in spite of what you claim to be. It's kind of like those people, like, I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was like, God know my heart. And I'm like, people only say that when they knowingly are going to sin. It's kind of that type of thing.
Exactly. You're blatantly knowing that, or you're at least trying to masquerade the fact of the stuff that you're doing and try to make it right? So...
Because we all sin, so it's not like as to judge, because we all sin, but it's like, you know, the iron sharpens iron, as it's in the Bible, and it's kind of like who you are affects, you know, is always affected by who you're surrounded by. So to surround yourself by those people, of course you should remove yourself, because you will fall into those patterns that they fall into, because you are who you hang with. And you're, like I said, whatever you listen to or watch is in your subconscious mind, so now those desires that they have, you're going to want it. It's kind of like when you watch, you know, when we was younger, you watch those videos of guys going to like Miami, like, oh, trying to get all the girls and stuff like that. And now you're like, oh, let me go to the mall, I'm about to bag all of them. Yeah. And it's like, you wouldn't have those desires, or, you know what I'm saying, to do that in that moment unless you watch that. So that's what we mean by that.
All right, you know something that I just heard, what was it, this week or last week? You know, people be having FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Yeah, Jess loves talking about that.
Yeah, there's a new acronym that, of course, I learned from the Basement Podcast with Tim Ross, is JOMO, the joy of missing out. So once you stop being afraid of missing out on stuff, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure I have FOMO.
I definitely have FOMO.
I'm 98% sure that I have FOMO, right?
One of my internal dilemmas.
So, you know, you gotta start have a joy on missing out on stuff, especially when you're trying to walk the Christian lifestyle. And we're kind of off topic right now, but, you know, this is just where the conversation is going.
It's natural.
But, yeah, you just gotta start having the joy of missing out on stuff, whether that be hanging out with your friends or, you know what I'm saying, the Miami joint, like just because you see somebody bagging shorties in Miami, you know what I'm saying, doing all that stuff, that do not mean you automatically have to go to the mall and start trying to do the same thing. So,
and not just that joy of missing out, that JOMO really saves you, because JOMO is a slow cooker. You know what I'm saying? It has to cook overnight, because you start to see why you'll be happy about missing out later on. It's kind of like, oh, say like people like, oh, I wish I would have messed with that girl, da 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 da. Now you see like, oh, you know what I'm saying, she got like 3 kids now. And it's like, if you would indulge in that, you know what I'm saying, that could have altered your life. Or, you know what I'm saying, I should have did this sooner. And then like, oh, someone gets in an accident, like, no, you left the house at the right time. But yeah,
what do you think?
I think that's a good place to leave off. Yeah. Just acceptance, you know what I'm saying, that JOMO, you know what I'm saying, learn JOMO over FOMO. Make sure you know ands, not buts, and more than one thing can be true at once. Acknowledging all those things will help you accept self and others.
Yep. And that was, I'm sure that was for people who are watching, that was a conversation where we were jumping all over the place. As we keep doing this, I'm sure we'll get better at.
We'll get better, but hey, it was natural.
This is a first time podcasting. Well, at least for me, Nick, you've been on.
Hey, I know better, but hey, I was rocking with it.
But you know, hey, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm not exactly sure how, you know, whole comments and stuff will.
We gonna start dropping weekly. On Thursdays.
You wanna drop weekly, or you wanna like just like record and then just like record all the episodes and then drop, or you want to drop like
we gonna drop weekly. We gotta change our outfits.
Okay. No, I mean like we can like record and then drop. Like we take probably like a month, 2 months to record all the Jones and then drop.
We gonna do it weekly.
Okay. We gonna do it weekly. Make sure y'all. Honestly, you can share, not share, whatever you want to do.
We will have this up on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
All that stuff. So
we are the Becoming Shameless podcast.
The Becoming Shameless podcast.
Ain't no shame in our game.
No shame. As you can see, we might have talked our ears off, and we don't have no shame in that either. So
we'll catch you next time.
All right, y'all.
Signing off.
All right. Sheesh.